Discover the amazing moment a widow transformed a saloon's fate with 100 unexpected guests. Mabel Thompson stood inside the dilapidated saloon grappling with despair. The empty bar counter loomed before her, a specter of the vibrant laughter that once echoed within those walls. Now, with her husband gone, it felt like a graveyard for dreams. She shuffled through a stack of dusty letters, her fingers trembling with the memories they contained. Each note revealed the fervor with which her late husband, Frank, had envisioned their saloon as a cornerstone of the community. And yet here she was, drowning in his debts, facing the suffocating silence of a town that had also lost its fervor. Her thoughts raced like a runaway train. It wasn't just about money, it was about legacy. Could she even hope to carry on Frank's dream? The weight of doubt pressed hard against her chest as her mind echoed with the specter of failure. What if the townsfolk remembered the place only as a bittersweet reminder of what once was? What if she was destined to be just another nameless widow in a town fading away? Mabel's heart surged as she thought of hosting a gathering, a chance to breathe life back into the saloon. Gathering her courage, she set a date. It felt like throwing a stone into an abyss, the ripples of which terrified her. Would anyone come? Or would it be another reflection of her solitary life? A shiver of regret threaded through her thoughts, yet the glimmer of hope warmed her resolve. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the gathering dawned, Mabel's nerves twisted within her like a coiled spring. She prepared the saloon, polishing every surface, setting out the bottles of whiskey, Frank's prized recipe, aged and beloved. She lit candles, their flicker meant to cast warmth over the shadows of her worry. But deep down, unease settled like a ghost, whispering fears of abandonment. What if no one cared? What if she failed to honor Frank's memory, his dreams slipping away like sand through her fingers? Then, as if life answered her question, the door creaked open. A flood of faces, familiar yet distant, entered the saloon. Mabel felt the rush of gratitude and vulnerability wash over her. Each handshake and smile pulled her into their stories and struggles, weaving the tapestry of a shared history. But just as they began to toast to the good memories, news of a wealthy outsider ready to buy the saloon shattered her heart. Anguish gripped her as she imagined the outsider's vision, a trendy bar void of character that would erase what Frank had built with love. Mabel's mind spun, feeling every gaze upon her, waiting, hoping for something, anything. She knew she had to fight to protect their legacy, each breath thick with fear of loss. Yet, doubt clawed at her resolve. What if the dreams were really just shadows, ghosts of a forgotten time? As laughter mingled with the salty taste of tears, Mabel faced her defining moment. With the weight of her indecision bearing down on her, would she rise to reclaim their future, or let it slip away quietly into nothingness? The sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting long shadows over the saloon, and she realized the battle line had been drawn. Mabel stood amidst the gathered faces, their familiarity mingling with her unease. Each shared story and heartfelt laugh carved a path through her fear, yet the news of the outsider's intent loomed heavily in her mind. This wasn't just about saving a building. It was about preserving the spirit of the community her husband had cherished. As the clinking of glasses filled the air, an unexpected resolve ignited within her. The saloon could no longer be a mausoleum of their past. It must transform into a beacon of hope and connection for the future. Mabel's pulse quickened at the thought, her heart matching the rhythm of the tapping boots on the wooden floor. The next day she sat at the same bar that had witnessed so many dreams, contemplating her next move. The invitation to the townsfolk had stirred something deep within them, a collective heartbeat. Yet could she launch a campaign to make the saloon a true pillar once more? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Ideas collided in her mind, stirring a whirlwind of creativity and doubt. What do I even know about running a bar? She murmured to herself. Each insecurity whispered louder than the last, following her as she brainstormed ideas. She needed an approach that differentiated the saloon from the glitzy vision of the outsider, an experience that was rooted in authenticity. Mabel reached for a pen and paper, and as she scribbled notes, she realized she had the power to curate unique themes: storytelling nights, game evenings, local musicians. She envisioned a menu featuring small plates inspired by the heritage of the land, foods that could connect patrons to their roots, but doubt snickered in the corners of her mind. Could she really execute this? Her hand trembled as she wrote, but there was a burgeoning determination simmering beneath the surface. The saloon wasn't just Frank's legacy anymore. It was also hers. The idea blossomed into a strategy, strengthening her will to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. That evening, she invited the handful of familiar faces who had shown up to support her. She shared her vision, her voice quavering but resolute. This place can be more than a tavern. It can be a sanctuary for stories, a bridge to our community, she declared, her breath hitching slightly as she sensed their reactions. To her astonishment, smiles spread across their faces and voices chimed in with enthusiasm. They, too, craved connection. They chipped in ideas, volunteering to help paint, organize, and spread the word. Each suggestion raised her spirits. With every interaction, Mabel uncovered her own hidden talents, her ability to inspire and unite those around her. As they sketched ideas on paper, a sense of purpose settled in her chest. And for the first time since Frank's passing, Mabel felt alive with possibility. Yet, the knowledge of the wealthy outsider still nagged in her mind. Would they succumb to indifference, or could they rally enough support to make their vision a reality? The sun faded behind the horizon once more, draping the room in twilight hues. Mabel glanced around, her heart beginning to race with ambition. This was her opportunity to not just fight, but to thrive. Would they reach enough people to prove the saloon's worth and secure their future? Or would they remain just another faded memory in the town's history? The stakes climbed higher as she wrestled with that thought. Determination coursed through her. The time was near to formally confront the outsider. She had to gather every ounce of strength to stake a claim not just for herself, but for the town she cherished. Mabel steeled herself, forging ahead into uncharted territory. Perhaps it was time to face the outsider directly. The battle to keep her love and her husband's vision alive had truly just begun. Mabel awoke early the next morning, her heart racing with a blend of excitement and anxiety. The vague outlines of her plans lay heavily in her mind, their potential looming like shadows over a sunlit path. She could no longer remain passive, reminiscing about what once was. She had to take actual steps to create a new reality. As she moved through the familiar rooms of her home, a sense of urgency propelled her. She brewed coffee with hands that trembled slightly, yet there was a daring determination behind each action. The saloon would not just be a venue, it could become an essential meeting ground for every individual craving a slice of connection, and she would be at the helm of that transformation. With a sharpened focus, Mabel pulled out her list of ideas and began sketching, refining them into a cohesive plan. She imagined hosting weekly themed nights that spotlighted different cultures, showcasing the rich tapestry of their community. Each flavor and story woven into the fabric of the saloon could be a celebration of life, laughter, and resilience, just as Frank had envisioned. Her heart raced as she considered how to involve the townsfolk in shaping the new identity of the saloon. Perhaps a brainstorming session could transform collective ideas into a vibrant menu. She envisioned a competition for locals to submit their favorite recipes, which could then feature alongside her own childhood favorites. This would not only engage the community, but also allow them to take ownership of the space again. As she jotted down ideas, she realized she needed volunteers, skilled enthusiasts to help execute her vision. But that brought a new wave of doubt crashing over her. Would her appeal resonate? Would people respond? Or would they view her as merely a widow grasping for something that had slipped away? Compelled to push aside her uncertainty, she took a deep breath, grabbing her coat before heading out. The saloon awaited her, a blank canvas eager to be painted with the dreams of its people. Upon arrival, she was greeted by a flood of memories, the laughter, the disagreements, the joyous celebrations. Today was not about clinging to the past, however. It was about redirecting all those narratives into a future tinged with unity. She quickly arranged tables and gathered a couple of trusted friends who had stayed close during her mourning. "Can we brainstorm in a more structured way?" she asked, her voice steadying as they nodded in agreement. They spread out across the floors, sketching ideas, sharing inspirations and honing her chaotic thoughts into structured tasks that reflected their shared identity and lives. An hour in, as her friends penned ideas for promotional flyers, the door swung open, and a familiar yet unexpected face stepped in. Helen, the town's former mayor. Mabel felt the tension seep back into her shoulders. While Helen had been a close ally once, the years had introduced a palpable distance. Yet there she stood, curiosity dancing in her eyes. "Mabel," Helen spoke warmly, "I heard whispers about changes in the saloon. I want to help however I can." Mabel felt a swell of hope combined with apprehension. Could their past collaboration become a catalyst for something significant again? Their exchange reignited an ember of confidence, and Mabel leaned into it. With renewed energy behind her, she impulsively proposed, "Let's invite everyone over for a meeting, townspeople and all. We can present my vision and share ideas for the saloon's relaunch. Maybe we can even schedule it for next weekend to gather some attention." Helen's eyes sparkled with encouragement. "It could create the buzz you need. Count me in." As the afternoon drifted away, Mabel understood that the confrontation with the outsider was no longer her sole focus. For the first time, her vision began to transcend her fears. A plan was taking shape, intricately woven into the fabric of connection and nostalgia. But as her excitement grew, another thought pierced her mind. The outsider they would soon face. The stakes weren't merely about the saloon's future. The outcome could determine their chance to reclaim a slice of their shared history. Mabel felt a chilling, sobering undercurrent. Were they truly ready to stand against someone so set on erasing them? As the day waned and shadows embraced her once again, the stakes shifted silently. She needed to prepare for more than just a relaunch. She had to ready herself for a fight. A battle for hearts, for a legacy, and for the very spirit of a town that could be swept away. With these thoughts charging through her, Mabel straightened her spine and breathed deeply, catching the edge of her wild ambition. The moment of confrontation loomed closer. Would it solidify her resolve, or fracture it? Mabel spent the following days under a pressure cooker of anticipation, with each ticking hour intensifying her determination. She immersed herself in organizing the town meeting, poring over every detail. Every flyer she designed had to embody the spirit of what she envisioned: unity, celebration, and resilience. Each time she sketched an idea or revised a message, a small flicker of hope ignited within her. The tension in her home grew palpable as the day of the meeting approached. By night, her sleep remained elusive, restless thoughts ricocheting off the walls of her mind. Was she truly ready to face not just her neighbors, but also an outsider whose intentions seeped into her strategies like ink into water? On the eve of the meeting, Mabel sat alone reviewing her carefully laid plans. There was something exhilarating yet terrifying about what laid ahead. If this gathering faltered, so might her claim to the saloon, and perhaps even more, the chance for her community to reclaim its essence. She thumbed through her scribbled notes, and her eye caught a few phrases that had drawn her attention during their brainstorming session, words that sparked memories of laughter and sorrow alike. "Let them have their say, let their hearts illuminate the path forward," she muttered to herself softly. The thought of collaboration felt abstract until it vibrated with the promise of shared stories and culinary nostalgia. A challenge surfaced within her. Would she be able to facilitate a conversation that didn't just bring everyone out of their shells, but united them against a looming threat? As the day unfolded, Mabel felt the undercurrents of doubt scrape against her resolve. Was she capable of unlocking the potential in others? Could she orchestrate an event driven by collective loss and hope, not just nostalgia? She carried these thoughts with her to the saloon early on the morning of the meeting, transforming them into fuel for what she was about to undertake. To her surprise, when she opened the doors, a sense of familiarity washed over her. Memories cascaded inside, mingling with the scent of freshly ground coffee and baked goods. The sight of tables arranged symmetrically, her proudest designs hanging on the walls, brought warmth to the cold undertone of the building's solitude. She took a deep breath, letting determination wash over any lingering doubts. Gradually, townsfolk began trickling in, their faces a mix of curiosity and confusion. Mabel greeted each of them, her voice steady though her heart thudded in her chest. She caught glimpses of familiar faces mingled with those she hadn't seen in years. Each interaction reminded her of the emotional stakes present. Today wasn't just about her. It was about them, their stories, and the community they had built and could rebuild. As they settled in, Mabel gathered her courage and stepped forward. Her voice rang clear, filled with an unmistakable passion. Thank you all for coming. Today we have the chance to share our stories, our culinary traditions, and dreams for the saloon. This is not just about a building, it's about what it represents, our fight against forgetting who we are. The room filled with a thick silence as though everyone held their collective breath. Would they rally behind her, or would her aspirations crumble at their feet? She felt as if she were peeling away layers of hesitation, a moment poised on the brink of revelation. And then, as if scripted by fate, one voice broke through the stillness, a raw suggestion from the back. What about supporting local farms with our menu? We could showcase their produce in the new dishes. Hope blossomed in Mabel's chest. Each idea flowed forth like a wave, carrying whispers of engagement and communion. But just as the chapter of camaraderie began unfolding, a shadow flickered at the periphery, a reminder of the outsider lurking, intent on thwarting her vision. The feeling deepened. Today was pivotal, but the fight had only just begun. What would she uncover, not just about her community, but about her own leadership in the process? The clash between legacy and progress hinged on this very moment, a precarious balance now teetering under the weight of unspoken fears. Mabel felt the electric rush of a new challenge. The dialogue was shaking the status quo. But in a town filled with history, how resilient were they ready to be against the imminent backlash from outside forces? Longing for connection surged through the air. The moment of truth was ready to unspool. But would she rise to face the confrontation ahead? Mabel stood at the microphone, gripping it with clammy hands as her heart raced with the thrill of engagement. The initial wave of responses to her call had coaxed tentative smiles and nods of agreement among the townsfolk. But the weight of her aspirations pressed heavily on her shoulders. She needed to harness this energy into something tangible, something that could withstand the looming cloud of uncertainty. The voices began to flow, each suggestion a thread in the tapestry she hoped to weave. Someone mentioned a potluck, another suggested live music. But Mabel needed something more focused, a core idea that would not only spark their creativity but further challenge her to lead the way. She mulled over ideas while responding enthusiastically, taking notes on every suggestion thrown her way. With every interaction, Mabel could feel the invisible barrier she had erected around her vulnerability beginning to crumble. She discovered that common grief and nostalgia could form a sturdy bridge to new possibilities. Each voice lent her strength, but doubt still crept in. Had she truly laid a foundation strong enough to withstand the interference of that outsider? The room seemed charged with electricity, and Mabel allowed herself a moment of reflection. In this gathering, she wasn't merely seeking the approval of the townsfolk. She was catalyzing a pivotal movement in her own life. The realization hit her. It was time to step outside the shadows of self-doubt and embrace the calling she had long suppressed. As she scribbled notes, she felt a familiar yearning surge, the desire to be more than just the person adding decor to a space, more than a caretaker for nostalgic memories. She had the capacity to be a leader, a visionary who could navigate both the cherished past and the unpredictable present. Let's not only support our local farms. How about we tell the stories behind each dish? Mabel said, the words flowing from her with newfound confidence. We could involve our children in this. Let them find recipes from their grandparents, and we'll create a menu that mixes the old with the new. In doing this, we can create a vibrant tapestry of our culinary heritage, one that honors our roots while challenging us to grow. The silence that followed was a stark contrast to the earlier buzz. The air thickened with contemplation. Doubt clutched her insides again. Did she overreach? Were they prepared to engage their past at such a deep level? But then, a young woman, whose grandparents had once owned a bakery, spoke up with reluctant enthusiasm. "I have a family secret cheesecake recipe. But it's not the sweet part that makes it special. It's the story behind it." Mabel's heart leapt. That was the breakthrough she had needed. Not just dishes, but experiences, each with its own narrative. This wasn't merely a saloon. It had the potential to transform into a living chronicle of their shared joys and sorrows. Encouraged by that spark, the conversation grew, buoyed by memories shared and aspirations expressed, and Mabel fought to harness the moment. But just as the overwhelming sensation of hope surged, the chilling awareness of the outsider returned to her thoughts. What kind of retaliation might they face? She couldn't ignore the unease curling in the pit of her stomach. "Thank you for your wonderful ideas," she concluded, trying to ground herself amid the tempest of emotion. "Let's keep brainstorming and come together, both in traditions and new ventures. Our next meeting will be about workshops to map our community tradition. Everyone is welcome. Let's start thinking practically about our future." As applause echoed around the room, Mabel breathed a sigh of relief but held tight to the lingering tension. Yes, they had begun to forge a future together. But this unity was fragile. What would unfold as they took their first steps? Would the growing excitement overshadow the undercurrents of fear? Mabel felt the sudden gravity of the moment. A crossroads lay before her, and the choice of how to proceed was now laden with implications that would once again test her resolve. The shadow loomed nearer, and the battle for the saloon and her vision had only just begun. With the meeting concluded, Mabel stepped outside, looking to the darkening sky. The event had shown her a glimmer of potential she hadn't dared to hope for, yet this spark felt as fragile as a candle in a windstorm. She needed to establish a foundation that could hold up against the scrutiny and interference of the outsider, who she was increasingly aware might work to undermine her efforts. Doubts threatened to invade her newfound courage. Back at home, she craved solitude. The faint sense of dust and old wood filled the air, her sanctuary from the chaos swirling outside. Mabel paced the small living room, grappling with the cacophony of thoughts tumbling in her mind. Could she really keep the momentum going? Was she up to the task of leading this partial revival, or was she destined to remain in the shadows of her own ambitions? As she moved toward her dining table, her fingers brushed against the surface, lingering on the tablecloth that had seen countless family dinners. It wasn't merely a piece of fabric. It represented her connection to a legacy that she cherished, yet struggled to uphold. Mabel recognized that this was not just about bringing the community together. This was about reclaiming her own sense of identity and place in the world. Suddenly, an idea struck her with fierce clarity. She needed to uncover her own stories. Reflecting on her experiences, she thought about the lessons passed down from her grandmother and the way food held the power to evoke memories. It was time for her to weave her own narrative into the fabric of their community tapestry, to stand firm and share her truth as a widow, as a leader yearning for growth. Energized by this realization, Mabel grabbed her notebook, now a companion for her thoughts. She began sketching out a plan for her own storytelling sessions, aiming to emphasize the importance of sharing not only recipes, but also personal narratives, connecting generations in a deeper way. She imagined outsiders coming in to hear tales of resilience, hope, loss, and love. This initiative needed a face, a persona for encouragement. Mabel contemplated how to structure her sessions. What could their format be? Would they be monologues, group shares, or a blend? Contemplating these openly shared vulnerabilities, she felt a rush of exhilaration. This involvement could also serve to subvert the outsider's influence while reinforcing her position. However, just as the excitement brewed within her, a flicker of apprehension crossed her mind. What would happen when she took the plunge to reveal these intimate stories? Would the community embrace them, or would they retreat, fearing the rawness of vulnerability? As the hours slipped away, Mabel understood that she was grappling not just with the logistics of her idea, but also navigating a personal metamorphosis. The saloon would not just serve food, it would become an incubator of stories that blended the old and the new, a true cultural hearth. Each heartbeat echoed a reminder. Her narrative held strength. Every secret shared would weave another layer of trust throughout the community fabric. But would they take the leap together? Would anyone have the courage to speak openly, exploring the shadows and light of their pasts? She felt a surge of determination. It was time to confront her fears, to channel her voice into something real and compelling. Mabel closed her notebook, taking a deep breath as clarity settled. This was more than just a gathering. It was the foundation of a new beginning. But as she prepared the next phase, a knock at the door startled her. The tone was heavy, foreboding. Who could it be? Her heart raced as she approached the door, the weight of the moment hanging palpably in the air. Would it be the one figure she dreaded, coming to challenge her plans? The answer lay just beyond that threshold. Mabel hesitated, her hand hovering above the doorknob. A dread permeated the air, mixing with the anticipation that initially surged within her. Every fiber of her being warned her that facing whatever lay on the other side would require bravery she barely felt. Taking a deep breath, she pulled the door open, ready to confront her unknown visitor. Her gaze fell upon a woman standing there, her expression inscrutable but charged with intensity. Thick curls framed her face, while a cascade of vibrant color adorned her clothing, an apparent contrast to Mabel's muted spirit. The woman didn't speak immediately. Instead, she studied Mabel with piercing eyes that seemed to unearth hidden layers of her vulnerabilities. "Hello," the stranger finally said, voice steady and warm. "I'm Iris. I heard through the grapevine that you have an idea, something about storytelling at the saloon." Mabel stepped aside to invite Iris in, momentarily disarmed by the unexpected openness. "Yes, I'm planning to create sessions where people can share their stories, along with their favorite recipes. It's a way to connect, to explore our pasts together." Iris nodded, her demeanor shifting slightly. "I think that's brilliant. We desperately need more avenues to express ourselves. But let me be frank. Why did you choose the saloon? It feels unconventional." Mabel stiffened at the question. The choice felt right to her, a radical departure from the ordinary, but the implications weighed heavily. "It's central to the community. It's where people come for conversation, for comfort. It's where connections are made. I want it to serve a greater purpose." "You might invite scrutiny doing something like this," Iris cautioned, the warmth in her voice replaced by a biting edge. "Opening up those wounds could expose too much." Mabel's heart sank at the words, instantly reminded of the outsider waiting to dismantle her efforts. Fears seeped through the cracks she had worked to seal. "But what if we don't?" she countered, feeling a swell of defiance rise within her. "What if we share our stories and we find strength? It could change everything." A flicker of admiration sparkled in Iris's eyes, and Mabel realized that beneath the initial skepticism, there lay potential for collaboration. "I'll help. I can bring friends, share some tales myself. If we're going to take this leap, let's make a real splash. You need support." As they discussed the possible framework for her sessions, ways to encourage authenticity while ensuring safety, a cautious excitement bubbled within Mabel. She reveled in a moment of clarity among the chaos. The intangible weight on her shoulders began to lighten, born not just from shared purpose but also camaraderie. Iris's enthusiasm sparked a liberating hope in her. Yet doubt lingered in the corners of her mind. Would they really show up? Would they dare share their lives, their vulnerabilities, as she planned to do? Without realizing it, she was broaching the core of her own exploration, acceptance of her authenticity in a world that often demanded conformity. The conversation flowed into the night, layered with moments of laughter and deep introspection. Mabel could sense a shift in herself. With each word exchanged, she solidified the foundation she had desperately sought. She was not alone in this endeavor, nor was she simply a widow but a catalyst for transformation, all born from stories. The two women exchanged contact information, and Iris promised to gather a few friends willing to step into the light of shared narrative. As Mabel closed the door behind her new ally, a wave of exhilaration washed over her. She felt the first stirring of genuine possibility. Suddenly the knock came again, louder this time. This felt different, urgent, demanding attention. Could it be the outsider? Her heart raced, anticipation gripping her throat as she stepped toward the door again, uncertain of what awaited her on the other side. A confrontation loomed. Would she be ready to face whatever or whomever might threaten her budding vision? The atmosphere buzzed with tension. Mabel's breath hitched as she neared the door, her mind racing with unsaid words echoing in her head. Who could it be? Was it a questioner, a skeptic come to dismantle her fragile hope? Or was it someone who, like Iris, could bolster her burgeoning plan? With a slight shake in her hands, she grasped the doorknob and twisted it open, revealing an older man wearing a weary yet determined expression. His broad shoulders and weathered face spoke of a lifetime spent in labor. But what captivated Mabel most were his eyes, piercing gray, practically shimmering with expectation. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice gravelly and resonant. Mabel hesitated for only a heartbeat before stepping aside again, curiosity piqued. "I'm Harold," he introduced himself as he entered, glancing around her home, taking in the scattered papers and the haphazardly stacked books on her coffee table. "Heard about your plans at the saloon?" "Things are still in the planning stages," Mabel replied, her earlier apprehension creeping back. Here was yet another person to scrutinize her vision. I think it's a good idea," he interrupted, asserting his stance with confidence. "People need a space to share, to feel heard. But," he paused, a slight grimace crossing his face, "you need to prepare for some resistance." "Resistance?" Mabel echoed, a knot forming in her stomach. The word plunged into her like a sharp dagger, reminding her of the inherent risk involved in unveiling one's life through stories. "Do you think it'll come from the community?" "Not just the community," Harold warned, his tone darkening. "You'll face those who think they know better, those who want to keep the past buried." His gaze bore into her. "You might not realize it yet, but you're stirring the pot. Some folks won't like that." The implication clawed at her resolve. "But isn't that the point? To bring forth conversation, to dig into what shaped us? How else are we to grow?" Mabel felt the fire of her ambition igniting within her. Was it enough to drown out her fears? Harold nodded, a flicker of respect lighting his eyes. "That's a hell of a mindset. You may find, though, that vulnerability can be painted as weakness." He paused, watching her closely. "Sometimes, a person's desire to hide hurts more than the stories themselves." Mabel's thoughts raced. Her own vulnerabilities felt like sharp edges, dangerous yet necessary for the journey she envisioned. "Then I just have to prepare myself and them for what's coming. This is about empowerment, not just sharing burdens." "Smart lady," he nodded, folding his arms. "If you stick to that mindset, you might surprise yourself. There's strength in stories, a resilience that blooms when we share our truths. But not everyone will see it that way." A heaviness enveloped the room, a shared understanding of the treacherous terrain before them. Mabel's pulse quickened. She was standing on the precipice of something grand yet frightening, tales waiting to be unearthed, emotions that could transform or destroy. "I'll gather a few people too," Harold said unexpectedly, breaking the tense moment. "You need voices, and I know more than a few who will appreciate what you're doing, if you can convince them that it's worth it." With every word, Mabel felt a burgeoning sense of direction, clarity sharpening her outlook. Confidence surged within her. What she was about to undertake felt monumental. She finally saw a path illuminated ahead. "Thank you, Harold. Truly," she said earnestly. "Your support means everything." Before he left, she watched him pause at the threshold, his figure framed by the door's glow. "Remember," he warned softly, "not all stories are easy to tell, and not all truths are easy to face." As he stepped away into the night, Mabel felt a resounding echo of his warning. Resilience, strength, and an unwavering commitment to authenticity had to be her armor. She prepared herself not just for the tales of others, but for the unearthing of her own buried narratives as well. As the door clicked shut, the air felt heavier. What awaited her was still unknown, but now she had allies in unexpected places. Facing the looming doubts and anticipated scrutiny, she steeled herself for the journey ahead. She turned back into her small space, mind racing. With each passing moment, the urgency to act grew. She had moments to seize, stories to cultivate, and the first sessions at the saloon would need to be crafted very carefully. The time had come to answer a question that echoed in her mind. Could she withstand the weight of vulnerability, or would she crumble under the pressure? It was a definition of self that awaited her, hovering on the horizon as she took her first steps deeper into her transformation. What if confronting those fears meant discovering an unknown side of herself, one that had yet to awaken? Mabel paced the uneven wooden floor of her living room, her mind a torrent of thoughts clawing for clarity. The echoes of Harold's voice reverberated, intertwining with memories of her own struggles and doubts. Preparing herself for this journey was daunting, yet the flicker of excitement ignited a spark deep within her, an awareness that she was about to step onto a stage fraught with potential. Doubt barked like a stubborn hound at the recesses of her mind. What if the stories she unearthed turned painful? What if her own past, seemingly buried, clawed its way back to the surface? She inhaled deeply, grounding herself. This wasn't merely about her. It was a shared journey, and the richness of these tales could foster healing, both for her and perhaps others. Setting a plan into motion was vital. Mabel grabbed a worn notebook filled with fragmented ideas and hastily jotted down the names of people she could approach. Her heart raced with anticipation. Each name represented a potential story, a truth waiting to be revealed. However, the prospect of conflict loomed close. Her fingers traced over a few names, those who had openly dismissed her ambitions before, who might see her endeavor as a farce rather than a vehicle for healing. Her determination flared. These individuals would need to be countered with information, evidence of the healing power and shared experience. With that thought, her mind shifted to practicalities. The saloon would need to adjust its atmosphere, become a sanctuary rather than a bar, a realm for exploration rather than distraction. What if I invited them? She mused aloud, pacing. Those who had expressed skepticism could become catalysts for conversation. With enough intention, perhaps their hesitance could be transformed into engagement. Mabel envisioned herself standing amidst the voices, gently coaxing them into the light of their stories. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the room in hues of orange and pink, Mabel felt a surge of energy wash over her. She reached for her phone and scrolled through her contacts, sending out tentative invitations. Each keystroke felt like a commitment to herself, a promise that she would not shy away from her purpose. After sending out a handful of messages, doubt loomed again. Would they respond? Would they engage? What would happen if she opened this door only to discover they were wholly uninterested in her vision? The weight of that uncertainty pressed against her chest. Digging her nails into her palms, she reminded herself why she was doing this. It was about transformation, about resilience. It was about unearthing truths, even when it hurt. A soft voice of encouragement emerged from within her. She could be the architect of her experiences, using their stories as material for her own growth. Suddenly, an unexpected surge of determination compelled her to conjure the courage needed to confront those skeptical voices. What if, by inviting them, she dismantled their disapproval? What if their stories, twisted in pain, could merge into narratives of hope? As night fell and shadows cloaked the corners of her home, Mabel steeled herself for the next step. Preparation was key, not just in inviting others, but in readying herself for the stories that might be shared, including her own. What would she reveal? Before she knew it, a sharp ring broke the silence, her first response. Heart racing, she snatched the phone, reading the message. It was a simple, "I'm in." A smile crept across her face. It was a spark. One spark could ignite the flame of something much larger. As she pondered her next move, a thought whispered just beneath her conscious mind. She wasn't just opening a door, she was blasting it wide open, but with each new commitment, every response she received, the fear of vulnerability returned, clawing at her resolve once more. Could she navigate this sea of emotions she was about to unleash? What awaited her just beyond the horizon was yet another question, one she would have to confront head-on. The pressures of public opinion, personal revelations, and whether or not she could be the anchor in the tumult. With the first session approaching, her transformation loomed closer, and she sensed that the hardest truths would require the most courage. What if uncovering these truths about herself, exposed in the sunshine of shared stories, was the very development necessary for her own metamorphosis? Mabel Thompson stood inside the rejuvenated saloon, the familiar scent of whiskey mingling with freshly baked bread, and realized she had transformed more than just the physical space. The once empty rooms now thrummed with life, filled with laughter, songs, and heartfelt stories. The saloon had become a thriving community hub, a place where vulnerability was celebrated and cherished rather than shunned. Reflecting on the journey from widowhood to leadership, Mabel felt a deep well of gratitude. When she thought back to the doubts and fears that had initially clouded her vision, she marveled at how far she had come. Where there was once despair, there now pulsed a vibrant symphony of connection. Her sessions had filled every corner of the saloon, each storytelling night weaving together the fabric of their community, an intricate tapestry of shared experiences, recipes, and generational legacies. As Mabel glanced around, she saw Harold coaching a group of children on storytelling techniques, while Iris passionately discussed recipes featuring hard-to-find herbs with a local farmer. The synergy between the townspeople had blossomed beyond her most optimistic projections. Gone were the days of anxiety over the outsider's arrival. They had formed bonds strong enough to withstand any challenge. Each face reflected a story that mattered, and each shared moment reinforced Mabel's sense of purpose. One evening, as she wrapped up a particularly moving session, a teardrop fell from her eye. Joy and pride overwhelmed her. She was no longer merely a remnant of Frank's dream. She had emerged as the guardian of a shared legacy. After the event, townsfolk approached her one by one, expressing their gratitude for her leadership and vision. A bittersweet warmth filled her heart. "Mabel, I don't think you understand the impact you've had," said a former skeptic, Sarah, who had initially doubted her premise of storytelling. "This saloon has brought us back together. Sharing these tales allows us to not just remember, but to redefine who we are." Mabel listened intently, feeling every word sink into her consciousness. This wasn't just about saving a building. It was about restoring identity and culture intertwined with struggle and resilience. Weeks passed, culminating in a gathering themed Reclaiming Our Roots. With urgency, Mabel executed a plan that showcased the recipes born from stories shared throughout the past months. As tables bore aromas of local favorites, Mabel took a moment to step outside, letting the cool evening air wash over her. She breathed deeply, feeling a profound shift in herself. This was her moment, not just to reflect upon her journey as a widow, but to celebrate her accomplishment of becoming a true leader. Mabel's resilience had transformed her grief into purpose, her self-doubt into confidence. She had stood at the crossroads of fear and hope and chosen to forge a path of empowerment. During the event, the outsider made his presence felt, a ill-fitting shadow against the vibrant backdrop of her transformed world. Intent on buying the saloon to conform it to his vision, he approached Mabel confidently, aiming to cripple her resolve. "A place for nostalgia has its limitations," he asserted. "You wouldn't want to be stuck in a bygone era." With steadiness in her voice, Mabel countered, "This isn't about lingering in the past, it's about connecting our narratives to become stronger. Together." His eyes narrowed, the conviction of her stance unnerving him. With each word, she illustrated how the saloon had become both an archive and a launchpad for new memories. Mabel's voice rose above the murmurs of disbelief, backed by the supportive crowd. "We've discovered strength in vulnerability. In every voice, a new story emerges. In every dish, a taste of our resilience. You may want the building, but the heart of it belongs to those who share, who know, and who care." The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time since Frank had left her to navigate those haunting echoes, Mabel felt a rush of solid confidence surge through her. She had proven to herself and to the townsfolk that she was more than capable. She was an architect of community legacy. As the outsider retreated, the warmth of camaraderie pulsed through the air, grounding her newfound identity within every shared laugh and cherished memory. Mabel realized this was more than an ownership of a saloon. It was a manifestation of her personal growth. In closing, Mabel rose to the stage, her voice filled with unwavering commitment. Together we celebrate the stories that shape our past and redefine our future. Here we are invincible. As cheers echoed around her, she stood firm, a recognized force of competence and courage. She had not only overcome her individual battle, but had woven a new identity for herself and her community. Mabel Thompson had truly taken her place as a beacon of hope, legacy, and resilience, achieving what once felt unattainable. She had conquered her doubts, transformed her grief, and proven that from the ashes of despair could arise an astonishing tapestry of shared dreams. Now, in this moment of triumph, remember to support the journey of resilience. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for personal overcoming stories.